cognizant of the time. It is 12:06, but there is one question that that I really want to ask all the panelists before I hand it back over to Deepak, which is, I mean, as is clear through this conversation, these are stressful times, and you as leaders and CxOs hold the mantle of not just the performance of the company, but also now an additional thing of managing the well-being and health of the mental health, emotional health of your teams. What are some of the habits or routines that you have built, especially during these the COVID-19 times, to keep yourself balanced and centered as you ride this this crisis? We can start. Arjun, you want to start?
Yeah, sure, Pooja. You know, interesting question. I was reading somewhere. It said that you know, leaders, not selfishly speaking, but you know, if you're leading a team, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. I think the analogy given was, in an aircraft, the announcement comes that wear your mask first before helping infants and children. And I think if you are not in a good, you know, frame of mind, it's going to definitely, you're not going to be, you know, be able to operate at 100%, be conscious and empathetic to your teams, and then it kind of spreads and manifests across, right? So I think at a personal level, you know, I'm a very outdoorsy person. I love to play tennis and golf, and as you can imagine, we're cloistered at home, and it is supremely frustrating not to be able to do what you did week in, week out. So you kind of pivot to what you can, right? Watching golf on TV, whether it's going and you know, kind of going back to your college days and figuring out what you used to do, hanging with friends, probably playing, you know, something as silly as, you know, video gaming on the internet with them, right? So you're trying to figure out what pockets of you know, activities make you happy, all right? Truly are stress busters for yourself, and you indulge in that guilty pleasure, right? And it's very important. As much as, you know, your wife might tell you that, you know, what are you doing gaming, you know, but it's very important for you to realize that it's important. And that's what you do. The other thing is you kind of also lean on people that you feel can pull you up, lift you up, right? Those who are better at having managed the situation than you're in. And just conversing with them, reaching out to them, kind of opening up a little bit, asking for advice has helped. These could be senior colleagues. They could be people who are like totally unrelated to your profession, right? A friend who's a musician, for instance, they always tend to have this very vibrant and optimistic, you know, aura around them, like what's going on. So you have to kind of, you know, and then you have to look internally for inspiration. At the end of the day, it is your responsibility. Like you say, you have the, you know, you wear the mantle of responsibility. And if you don't level up, then, you know, and recognize this as one of those opportunities, one of those once in a lifetime opportunities where you have to shape up, you have to grow, then, you know, then you're kind of not evolving yourself the way you expect and your team expects you to. So I think it's a mix of those. You do what you can to kind of come out ahead.
Yeah. Ajay?
I think, you know, personally, I've tried to keep myself a little busy physically, you know, and it helps a lot, if you ask me. And since I live in a place where I can go out and walk around and cycle around, so I was lucky enough to be able to do that a lot, because that keeps my head clear mostly. Then the other two bits I thought is probably more attitudinal. The fact that one, I have probably had the hindsight or the wisdom of hindsight to have seen a couple of crises, to also have that little attitude saying that, okay, this too shall pass. It's not the end of the world. And to, even if you get something like this, guys, let's not, you know, think that's the end of the world either, right? People are recovering. More people I know who got it have recovered than, you know, kind of got into any kind of condition. So I think not taking this that seriously itself is also, I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but at least that's what's kept me a bit sane.
Wonderful. Great. Vaidesh?
Well, like everyone said that, you know, physical positivity is so important. So generally, fortunately, I have a chance to go down and go for a walk in our common area. We have a good space for walks, and getting a chance to, with maintaining social distance, having a chat with some people. And as everybody is saying the same thing, I think it is the language is important, and maintaining a language of declaration of positivity is going to be so important at this time, because there's so much is happening about what is the number going up in Mumbai and this on. You know, as if some election results are coming up. So first thing, you shut down this stuff. You know, they're not talking election results. We know
Right.
time there are enough scientific data that's coming out. We read it once, and I know where the vaccine development is happening. So to that extent, personally, I motivate myself by having some declaration that's positive. And fortunately, I also have a lot of these young people who call up and regarding the startup. That also keeps me quite excited about the fact that more than the people above 50s, I'm not qualifying it here. I think the young people are far more positive about the current situation, where you end up in a lot of stuff, which is very exciting stuff. What could I do this? Can I do, you know? So you keep yourself in a very, very engaged, positive tone. Quite obviously at home, if possible, spend some time in trying to find out some cooking or something can do jointly. So the whole idea is to keep the mood positive, and then have some hangout with families, and which many people will do the same thing.
Right.
Till you go to sleep, keep the mood positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Srini?
Well, I mean, I don't know, contrary to others, I think I'm more busy than I'm ever before. I don't get so much of me time like I want to. I think, according to me, the productivity and workloads have actually gone up despite working from home. I always thought, well, work from home was a good thing. I'll be able to catch up on books. I'll be able to catch up on so many things that I've missed. It does look like that's not really happening. So I'm actually, trying to push myself to get some me time. Like Ajay said, some games. Of course, I watch a lot of movies. I think one of these days I'll run out of movies on Netflix and Amazon. Because I do virtually watch a movie a day, but I do sleep very late. So that's kind of a stress buster for me, trying to take that me time out. Because you're at home all the time, most of the time. It's not as easy as what you thought it is, right? There is no 5-minute chit-chat break. There is no side tracks, and there are no social medias, and everything else is out.
Right.
What I've tried to do with the team and myself is actually we've tried to constantly think and reflect about the company's mission over and over again. I think during times like this, if you continue to articulate that and test that, what your company and company's mission is, I think that's a very positive thing. And we try to do that with senior management and leadership now, saying, okay, how is it still relevant? Post this crisis, how is it going to continue to be still relevant? And put those clear guidelines. And, I think the clarity approach for business like us, we are a knowledge business, right? We run a mutual funds, the largest mutual fund, $150 billion in assets. People are critical, and what we do is very critical. Everything that we do is very, very, it has impact on the money that we manage. So I think testing your business model, testing your company's mission in difficult times like now is, I think, what we are trying to reflect on. I think in the last few weeks, this has been top of our mind. And I do that even at me times, thinking, oh, is this still a right company to work? Do I still, is this still post-COVID? Is this still going to be a great place for employees, right? So that's something I try and do. I know it's not like something path-breaking, but I think if you do this now, I think it gets better when things get better.
Right. Puneet?
No, some fascinating ideas by my colleagues here today. I'll use 2-3 things quickly to bring this to close. I think one, Arjun covered this, right? I think there are 2 syndromes that leaders tend to fall into. One is this whole sacrifice syndrome. I'm gonna do everything that I can and lift the weight of the world. And I completely agree with Arjun, right? Put the face mask on yourself and take care of yourself. The second is the victim syndrome, right? Which is saying somebody needs to rescue me, and why are all problems coming to me? And I also need downtime, all of that stuff, right? And these are all battles in our own minds, but I just kind of keep cautioning myself against falling into either of those traps and keep myself sane. I think the second thing is taking care of yourself, going beyond sleep and eating and exercise and entertainment. I think it's also about being generous and kind to yourself, right? And maybe it's more personal, right? But I tend to be very critical of my own decisions and my own actions, and I need headspace, right? And there are many ways of doing it. Some people journal, some people meditate, some people reflect, some people take a walk, whatever floats your boat. But as a leader, you've got to be able to find some headspace so that you can really kind of decouple the fiction from the facts in your mind. And then the last thing is you just as a leader, your own personal operating model, right? And I kind of look at this now. I used to look at this every month. Now I look at it every Sunday, and there are 3 or 4 things that I look at, right? One is, what are my priorities? Going back to this piece around taking care of yourself, what are the real swing decisions I can take in the next week that will really move the needle, and everything else needs to be delegated or automated or whatever, right? So what your priorities are. Second, what roles am I playing? Am I really helping my teams think big? Am I really helping them solve problems? Am I being a shoulder to cry on? And there are multiple roles we have to play, but being conscious about that.
Yep.
Third is managing your energy, right? Which is, so now become a morning person, and I really want to do all my interesting problem-solving discussions in the morning. And then finally, your time. And this is something that I learned from Pradeep Arjun. And he told me one day, and Pradeep, who runs Uber in India, and he said, how much of your agenda is driven by your priorities versus somebody else's priorities? Always go back and look at that, right? And I look at that every Sunday, saying how much of my agenda is, and at least half of it, if not more, has to be driven by things that I want to go and solve. So just kind of keeping your operating model in terms of your energy, the time, your priorities, and the role you play, and then finding some headspace.
Wonderful.
I'm trying to solve it.
Wonderful. But thank you so much. I think this was extremely helpful. I will share just a small anecdote from my side as to, when this whole lockdown started, for my family, there was only one. I tend to be a disciplinarian and a tough mom with routines for my children and for my family. But when the whole lockdown started, there was only one rule I said, and this was way back in March. It is just be kind and compassionate to each other. We are all going to be locked in this house, working, doing our thing. Be kind and compassionate to each other, and be kind to yourself as well. The downside of that is, in being kind to myself, I put on a lot of weight because I end up giving into my temptation of cookies and stuff. And the second point I want to bring about is, I was reflecting on it, and especially when Deepak mentioned about IntelliThoughts, there are these micro steps that you can take, especially when there is so much stress in the air surrounding you, which, this impacts the our limbic or the mammalian brain. At IntelliThoughts, we had a preschool, and parents, when they came to drop off their children, the first few days of the preschool, it was rough. It was rough for parents. It was rough for children. It was rough for teachers. This was the first time children were stepping out of their comfort zones of their homes and going into a school environment. And children would still settle, but actually parents found it very, very hard. There used to be challenges at the pickup, at the drop-off time. And we were a very neuroscience-based pedagogy. We implemented a lot of cognitive neuroscience in how we taught children and how we worked with children. So one of the things we implemented was started putting some aroma at the entryway, which was either lavender or jasmine. That was one. And the second was started playing peppy music at that time. We did some research and collected some data before this and after this. And I can tell you that the stressful interactions between teachers and parents and children and parents actually went down by almost 90%. So, that might not be a very rational thing to do. So for us, music has been another part of our lifeline during this lockdown that has kept us sane and positive. But in any case, thank you. It's been a fascinating conversation. I have taken just so many notes and so many things to go back to my workplace with, and I hope the audiences found it useful. There were some questions that we were not able to address. Hopefully, we will be able to make this recording available. And if there are still any festering questions, we'd be happy to answer later. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Back over
Thanks,
to you.
Pooja.